The jury delivers its verdict in the Jamie Smith police custody death case. Straight ahead, hear from the attorney of 4 officers implicated in the case.
Also ahead, why a police investigation has been opened at Stephen Dillett.
And find out who's king of the hill. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This segment of the news is brought to you by BTC, powered by Lime.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kishla Adderley.
And I'm Chris Saunders. Thank you so much for joining us.
The verdict handed down today in the coroner's inquest into the death of Jamie Smith.
36-year-old Jamie Smith, you remember, died while in custody at the Central Detective Unit back in February. Fern Carey was in court today when the verdict was handed down.
After deliberating for about 2 hours, the 3-woman, 2-man jury unanimously decided that the force used by police officers against 36-year-old Jamie Smith was lawful and justified. You may recall that Smith died while in custody at the Central Detective Unit back on February 8th. Following his death, a pathologist found that he died from a lack of oxygen. Now, during the coroner's inquest, there were questions as to whether the person who died at CDU was in fact Jamie Smith, as he was also known as Matthew Pratt and Dodger. But jurors also settled that question, determining that the person who died was in fact Jamie Smith. Following the jury's verdict, the officers involved in the matter appear to be relieved. They include Detective Corporal 1287 Brian Roach, Sergeant 2145 Keno Smith, Inspector Ezra Maycock, and Corporal Sterling Knowles. Their attorney Wayne Munro spoke outside of court.
If we're serious about fighting crime, we have to basically understand that the police have to do what they have to do to protect us from undesirable people. We make them do this after all because I don't want to deal with Jamie Smith, a man who would try to rob an armored car using an AK-47 along with other people using an AK-47. We task these officers to deal with that because we don't want to deal with it. And as a society, we have to determine that if we give the police the authority, the obligation to deal with undesirable people, we can't seek to handcuff them when they do what is necessary to deal with these undesirables.
Munro says these officers will now take time off to reflect before they return to the front lines.
This is an ordeal that people don't particularly understand. Although they were discharging their duty, somebody has died, and that is something that takes dealing with. We task these men, we arm them, and when we arm them, we say to them that you may have to kill somebody. If that happens to be an eventuality, then we must be understanding and understand that they may, for instance, after today, need a time to reflect, to take stock, and to properly take in all that has happened.
Meantime, attorney Christina Galanis, who represented Jamie Smith's family, and the prosecutors who marshaled the evidence on behalf of the Crown, both declined comment. Jamie Smith's relatives, usually in the court during the proceedings, were not in court for the verdict. Fern Carey, ZNS Network News.
A police investigation has been launched and 24-hour security surveillance activated as the Education Ministry seeks to get to the bottom of persistent air conditioning problems at the Uriah McPhee and Stephen Dillett primary schools. Both schools have been closed on and off since the start of the school year, and Education Minister Jerome Fitzgerald suspects there's something sinister about the recurring problems. LaDawn Davis has more.
Minister of Education, Science and Technology, the Honorable Jerome Fitzgerald, is blaming the recent malfunctioning of the air conditioning unit at the Uriah McPhee Primary School on sabotage. In fact, he says it's a serious issue that he has taken to the authorities.
We have reported the matter to the police today, and it appears that every day this week we have had an experience of damage to our units, which has caused us now to put the units at both schools on 24-hour security watch.
Minister of Education, Science and Technology, the Honorable Jerome Fitzgerald, says to the AC unit will cost the ministry thousands more dollars to repair. But despite this inconvenience, he says teachers must report to work.
We expect the teachers to be in school at Uriah McPhee. We have told them that they can return on Monday because of the damage we've received our AC units during the course of the week, which has caused us problems with our ventilation inside. We will be addressing those again between today and tomorrow.
50% of the teachers at the Stephen Dillard and all of the teachers at Uriah McPhee reported to work on Friday, but after the alleged sabotage, they were asked to leave. However, janitorial staff remained on the school grounds. On another note, Minister Fitzgerald says he is disappointed that the union has engaged in what he's called a campaign of hysteria despite being involved in the inspection process.
Well, what concerns me is that when I saw the pictures that the union president was showing, these are pictures which undoubtedly were pictures taken before the work was done. At Stephen Dillard, the concern there was with regard to the quality of the air. We addressed that, and now I understand that the president is talking about asbestos and fiberglass and all sorts of things that really have no place in the school and do not exist. And
the education minister also revealed the findings of a report conducted by a team from the Department of Environmental Health, which gave the ministry an all clear to reopen schools, but must complete this scope of work first.
1, spiraling and vacuuming of air-conditioned ducts. 2, removal and pressure washing of fan coil wheels. Removal and cleaning of air-conditioned vent grills and diffusers, fogging inside the building with an approved disinfectant, ensure that the air conditioning system is operating to its optimum, and treat the schools for rodents.
The DEHS team is expected to return over the next 10 days for a final inspection. Meantime, the minister is encouraging parents with lingering concerns to visit both schools on Monday to conduct their own assessments. LaDawn Davis, ZNS Network News.
A major sting operation landing suspects behind bars and others being sought as authorities crack down on the drug trade.
Tonight, Opal Roach tells us about the latest drug bust taking place on a very small key.
Their hours may have been extended, but those officers on the front line of the crime fight are apparently reaping some rewards. In recent days, drug enforcement officers have been able to put a significant dent in organized crime and take culprits down. The latest bust taking place in the Ragged Island chain. DEU Commander Superintendent Samuel Butler says through Operation Lionfish, local and foreign officers hauled in thousands of pounds of drugs.
We are able to approximate over 2,000 pounds of marijuana being discovered on that remote key with a street value of some $2 million. We have already taken 2 Bahamian males into custody, along with a go-fast boat. We are seeking other suspects, and we know that we are going to be able to successfully bring this investigation to a close in a short order and have persons before the court.
Now, despite efforts, the Bahamas still remains on a watch list of 22 nations identified by the U.S. government as a drug producer or a key transit point. But American authorities say inclusion is not necessarily an adverse reflection on the country's counter-narcotics efforts or its level of cooperation. Last year, millions of dollars worth of marijuana and cocaine were confiscated in joint efforts. Superintendent Butler says they will continue to work to keep those drugs off the streets.
The Drug Enforcement Unit has been very successful in conducting its investigation. You know, this is coming on the heel of a major cultivation ring that we were able to break just a few days ago. And this also is coming on the heel late August, where we were able to again seize over 1,200 pounds of marijuana from one of the family islands. And so it speaks volume for the Drug Enforcement Unit, the effort, the members, and their commitment to the interdiction of dangerous drugs.
Butler also had this warning to those who continue to practice in the illegal drug trade.
The drug enforcement stands resolute and we will leave no stones unturned and bring you into custody. But we want to continue to, again, appeal and thank the Bahamian public for providing intelligence to the Drug Enforcement Unit. Your intelligence has been able to lead us to a very successful operation. We ask that you continue to assist us with those intelligence.
I'm Opal Roach, ZNS Network News.
That most recent drug bust was a joint effort between U.S. authorities and the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Moving on, there are more suggestions coming out of last month's crime forum that government intends to follow. Andrew Knowles fills us in.
We need a Parental Responsibility Act. These young children found on the roads late at night in nightclubs. The parents should have to face some responsibility.
Advice given, advice taken.
We are looking at introducing a Parental Responsibility Act, which will make parents responsible for the activities of their minor children. And we have many minor children now. We have 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds. We have 15-year-olds who are being charged with murder.
But that's not the only issue facing our youth. A recent National Anti-Drug Secretariat survey found that as many as 40% of students attending both private and public schools have been exposed to drugs by peers who are users. In fact, according to data collected in the National Secondary Drug Prevalence Survey, alcohol and marijuana continue to be the drugs of choice among secondary school students.
I think that we're going to recommend that there be at least random drug testing in our schools in order to, one, cause them to think very seriously about using drugs, but secondly, to determine to extend the variable who is on and how we can use that information to combat the use of drugs by young people.
Other suggestions coming out of that crime forum include the enforcement of capital punishment, alternative sentencing for people convicted of possessing small quantities of drugs, and even the reintroduction of truant officers.
We have been criticized for having the forum because there are certain people who feel that we should know it all and that we should not have to ask the public for help. But I am diametrically opposed to that because I believe that the most powerful tool that we have for fighting crime is the cooperation of the average citizen and people who live in the average community.
Dr. Nottage says this 8-page booklet confirms that talking to the public can be very helpful. The next crime forum is scheduled to take place in the Pinewood Gardens area. At that time, several initiatives will be announced. Andrew Knowles, ZNS Network News.
Andrew, thanks a lot. Some other news, Dame Marguerite Pinland was sworn in this afternoon by Chief Justice Sir Michael Barnett as Acting Governor General. Dame Marguerite will sit in for Governor General Sir Arthur Folkes between Sunday and Wednesday. Sir Arthur will be out of the country during that period.
Still ahead tonight, a confirmation on the horizon.
And later in sports, the latest from pool. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Shell Helix Ultra. Performance you can see.